The launch of the Space Shuttle Atlantis from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida marks the end of a remarkable chapter. You see, the shuttle was the world's first reusable spacecraft, and for 3 decades, the US program has launched satellites, furthered research, survived 2 disasters and many doubters, and of course it's transported human beings beyond the Earth and way beyond our imagination. Yet what was once considered extraordinary has become commonplace. Launches once dominated the newspaper headlines and TV airtime, but in recent years, they've slipped further back in the news. But once more, with the shuttle on the verge of history, it's in the public eye and mind. We think about all that it's done, the achievements and the tragedies, and we wonder what's next in the exploration of space. G'day.
Sorry, I was wandering around the other end.
Great to meet you.
Nice to
I'm
meet
doing
you.
what I always want to do, shake your hand after Kazakhstan.
Michael Barrett is a down-to-earth
How are you?
character.
I'm great.
Down-to-earth, that is, except for his job. Michael Barrett is an astronaut and space doctor. We first met, well, kind of, through a pane of glass in a quarantine area on the eve of his first flight into space in March 2009. Dr. Barrett and 2 others were preparing to set off in a Soyuz craft from the Russian space center of Baikonur in the Central Asian Republic of Kazakhstan, leaving behind a world riven by tense US-Russia relations and reeling from the financial crisis.
Things going on around us, economics and politics, are very small. They're trivial compared to what we've had to overcome to get where we are now.
Where Michael Barrett was headed was the International Space Station, a laboratory floating above the Earth. Here for more than 6 months, Michael Barrett lived, worked, toasted the breakthrough of recycling crew urine and sweat into drinking water, and he celebrated his 50th birthday.
It was the most amazing experience I've ever had, and I guess the testament to that is at the end of 6.5 months up there, being very attached to my family, it was hard to leave. I almost didn't want to go home.
The father of 5 returned home to Texas and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA.
My mother calls this our toy box because it's full of simulators and mock-ups, of course.
At the Johnson Space Center in Houston, there are reminders of his great adventure, including a mock-up of a Russian Soyuz capsule, just like the one he traveled in.
It's just bringing back all the checklists. I know exactly what my duties are, and this is my control panel right here, and these valves, and this switch panel. I mean, these are all mine, so.
And slide in.
Right, and then put your feet on that seat.
Now, when I visited in July 2010, Michael Barrett was happy sharing his memories and his space.
Yeah, imagine re-entry in this, and that you're now down to just this one little capsule. And you're watching out here as your window, your outer window pane melts, and you're watching the plasma go by, and you're just kind of coming down, and you have a kind of a sensation of rushing wind going through as you enter the atmosphere. But it's a great ride.
But Michael Barrett wasn't here to reminisce. He was in training to return to space and to the station he loves. This time, not in a Russian rocket, but in a US space shuttle.
Much easier in zero gravity.
There we go.
In this mock-up in a vast training hall, Michael Barrett and his crewmates were getting to know every square centimetre of the shuttle and everything in it.
You're just going to cycle the circuit breaker one additional time. Personally, I can't imagine having to put all that information into my brain. Then we get to R12.
On this day, Gary Kilgo was teaching the crew about audio-visual technology.
If they go through the training now, everything on orbit is much easier. Repetition here on the ground is much cheaper than trying to learn it first time in space.
This is our galley, so our kitchen, if you will. We could rehydrate food here.
Michael Barrett already knew the shuttle intimately.
There we choose the volume of water and squirt in hot or cold.
And this is how you enter the space station?
That's right. When we dock, there's a hatch that's down here and turn the corner 90 degrees upwards, and that'll be in line with our docking hatch for the space station. And then our commute to work each day once we're docked will be from our sleeping station here and then down this tunnel and then up and over to the station.
Michael Barrett was preparing to fly into not just space, but also history. For his flight, named STS-133 to the space station, was to be the third last mission in the US Space Shuttle program.
2, 1. Booster ignition and the final liftoff of Discovery.
And the last for the shuttle called Discovery.
When the historians look back on this era, the space shuttle will be the most notable accomplishment following the human landings on the moon and perhaps the robotic exploration of Mars.
After years of NASA working on a reusable craft, the shuttle finally got off the ground in 1981 with the launch of Columbia.
America's first space shuttle, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
What a remarkable flying vehicle it is. Takes off like a rocket.
Wayne Hale's career and the shuttle had been entwined.
Lands like an airplane.
He worked at NASA from 1978 until last year. And for 3 years, from 2005, he was the Space Shuttle program manager. They were dark days for the program, still recovering from the loss of Columbia and its 7 crew members in 2003. It was the second shuttle disaster. In 1986, Challenger exploded a little more than a minute after lifting off.
We have a report from the flight dynamics officer that the vehicle has exploded.
It would have been tremendously easy to walk away. Say, you know, we have tried this space exploration thing. We have found that our technology is lacking and imperfect. The risks are too high. The cost in human life has been too high. There were many voices that gave that counsel. It would have been extraordinarily easy to throw in the towel, walk away, and just maybe let the robotic explorers go forward for us. That is not what humanity is all about.
There have been other factors damaging the program. In its early days, there were high economic hopes.
A much greater return on investment is expected from America's space shuttle being rolled out here in September 1976.
Yet those hopes of more flights and greater cost effectiveness weren't realised. Wayne Hale countered that's partly because the program's budget was constrained. But he rankled at criticisms that for the billions of dollars poured into it, the program hasn't made the advances expected, including in science.
Well, let's see. Without the shuttle, there would not have been the Hubble Space Telescope. We wouldn't have made the fundamental discoveries about the universe that the Hubble has made. We've done thousands of experiments on the human body and other biological systems in zero gravity. We've uncovered new ways to treat cancer.
Michael Barrett said by helping build and man the International Space Station, the shuttle has also advanced the world on a more fundamental level.
And when you consider that the two major partners of Station are two Cold War adversaries, the US and Russia, who now work together as closely as we do on Station, I think it's tremendous. And I think that cross-pollination has made the world safer, better.
During George W. Bush's administration, it was announced the shuttles were to be retired, with the focus shifting to the Constellation program, to build rockets to return Americans to the moon as a stepping stone to go further. But President Barack Obama had other ideas, effectively scuttling that program.
Not just to continue on the same path, we want to leap into the future. We want major breakthroughs.
President Obama hopes to have humans orbiting Mars by the mid-2030s.
There will be costs, but in the end we'll look back on it and say, sure, of course, that was a good investment.
The part of space I think that has stimulated a lot of support in the past and will in the future is that exploratory portion of it.
Professor Larry Bell is the founder of the Sasakawa International Center for Space Architecture at the University of Houston. He wonders if Washington's latest vision for space is purely political, as it pushes the goals as well as the costs and challenges way into the future.
Yes, I favored the broadening of the scope of the program. My larger question is whether we're just kicking the can down the road, and whether by creating a broad vision where there's little commitment to that vision.
For many at NASA, this is a bittersweet time in the administration's history. As this era of space travel comes to an end, the next chapter hasn't even been written. There's no clear successor to the space shuttle, so for the foreseeable future, astronauts won't be going into space in an American craft.
The problem with the space shuttle isn't that it's not good enough. The problem with the space shuttle is it's been too good, so we've never had the impetus to develop the next vehicle, which would be, I think, more economical and more effective in opening up low Earth orbit, at least, to more people.
Michael Barrett has said he supports any plan that furthers space exploration, but he's disappointed that in the meantime, as the shuttle program shuts, thousands of jobs and a lot of expertise are going.
If we want to go further with a new vehicle, with a new mission, we simply can't afford to do both. We can't fly the shuttles and build a new vehicle and design some of the new missions that will really take us further.
Professor Larry Bell hasn't been happy that Americans won't be getting themselves into space for a while. Russian craft will be taking astronauts to the International Space Station. He's favoured extending the shuttle program, but says if there was another disaster, it could have enormous consequences.
I think the public is so intolerant of errors and failures that another failure of the shuttle might be the final nail in the coffin of our U.S. space program.
It's that much at stake?
I think so. If you look at the reaction to the Columbia disaster and so on, it will be taken as, and I think, an excuse for many to say, well, why are we doing this?
Dr. Michael Barrett and his colleagues completed their mission in March, bringing Discovery back to Earth for the 39th and final time.
And nose gear touchdown and the end of a historic journey.
And even after the program has been wrapped up, many believe that the space shuttle's place in history is assured.
We've made transportation to and from low Earth orbit as routine as technology allows us to make it at this time in our evolution.
To Michael Barrett, the evolution continues. He points out that the program's closure doesn't mean an end to humanity's desire to confront challenges and to push for new limits, especially in the seemingly limitless expanse of space.
We may have been, along with our Russian brethren, first out of the blocks. But this is a small point in time, and when you look maybe 200 years from now back, you're going to see a lot of countries coming to the same conclusion, launching people, and that is humanity. Outward discovery, that's us.